Tired of getting knocked around by those annoying punchy guys? Well, don't you worry, because Zenless Zone Zero's latest S-rank agent, Caesar King, is the ultimate brick wall that solves all your bad ping problems. Well, a brick wall that also brutally punches guys in the face. With her incredible parry into counter skills, she'll not only protect your team from all incoming damage, but also turns that defense into massive damage. She can even force parry counters without any meter. If you want to learn how to master Caesar King, then this video is for you. Some of the key things to mention here will be the easy to learn, hard to master kit, how to abuse her guard points on or off the field with the strongest teams, and the best builds, strategies, and set play to dominate the new in-game with her sword and shield. Everyone is calling Caesar a must pull, but now it's time to find out why. In my script, there's something about shifting into turbo here because Power Rangers reference, but now we're going to just transition right on into the basics. See how I did that? Starting things off, Caesar is classified as a defense unit, but she's basically a stun agent in disguise. Yeah, I mean, to be completely fair, most defense units are always defensively focused with a side of anything else they literally want. But in Caesar's case specifically, her gameplay focuses around forcing situations to parry the opponent and then gain Radiant Aegis, her unique shield that gives a whopping 4,200 protection value. There are a couple of moves in her kit that matter for hyper-specific situations regarding this, so I won't go over everything that isn't important right now. Instead, I'll explain the basis of her kit and the notable moves we'll talk about in the upcoming section. First, at a base level, your goal is to score a parry into EX2. EX2 is going to be the shorthand way of saying her follow-up attack after a parry. What's cool about this particular move is not only does performing a perfect parry give you an impregnable shield that simultaneously buffs the entire team's damage by 25%, and gives the active character up to 1,000 attack. But the EX2 counter can be performed with just 20 energy and only from a regular skill based on my current testing so far. Again, I'll explain more of that in the next chapter. The next thing to talk about is the shield itself, providing your entire team over 3,000's worth of shield HP, a flat attack bonus of 1,000 to the on-field driver, and a universal debuff against all enemies within range that increases their received damage by 25% from all teammates for 30 seconds. I know it's a lot to unpack and just absorb, but bear with me. After that, we can talk about one of her moves that will get overlooked and isn't stated in her move list. Similar to Jane, Caesar has 2 dodges. Well, I guess Jane has 3, but Caesar has 2 distinct dodges. Now, this move by itself might not hold a lot of value, but in actual combat, this secondary dodge is a major get out of jail free card. The backflip seems to be fully invulnerable even without the witch time effect, but don't depend on this for that reason. Use this the same way you would use her forward roll. Essentially, get out of the way without drawing too much distance between you and the opponent. The roll and backflip are just far enough that it places Caesar in the perfect position to get a perfect parry every single time. I'm sure it'll take some getting used to, and she has a simple kit with a lot to offer. Just take it all in, and remember, the game isn't rushing you to learn it, so have fun. Lastly, we need to talk about the parry itself. She's able to perform this shield blocking technique through the use of the skill, dash attack, and technically a defensive assist. Normally, you'll see this move have a bright blue flash behind it, which is the perfect parry. And with at least 40 energy, you will have free access to EX2. When you don't have energy, perfect parries are still optimal to keep you from taking any damage. But pay attention to when Radiant Aegis is activated, because you can still free EX2 counters by purposely not getting a perfect parry and instead going for the regular parry. I guess it's not really a parry, it's a block, but final time I'm saying this, I'll explain this in the next chapter, which is literally right after this. These are the basic things you should understand about Caesar and what makes her tick. For my own testing, getting a good grasp of her parry skill and the shield's mechanics will allow you to take Caesar from basic to broken. She has some amazing potential with just these mechanics alone, and will make any player who's struggling against specific boss mechanics feel like a breeze. But that's not really why you're here, right? Let's shift Caesar into turbo. Guys, I had to say it, bro. Power Rangers has been on my timeline all week. I had to throw one in there. Now that we have a basic understanding of Caesar's kit, it should be easier to accept what I'm about to say. Parry, everything. And I mean that. Caesar's entire game plan revolves around manual parries, not mashing into, oh look, I see flash, let me parry, or stay on X character until stunned, then burst rotate. Stop. Learn how to use this move in every way, shape, or form. I'm not an asshole though, at least not today. Remember earlier when I said there were a couple of moves in her kit that mattered in hyper-specific scenarios? Basic 1, 2, 3, stop. Repeat the process. These 3 moves will be your best friend in any given situation, no matter the enemy. Unlike other characters, Caesar doesn't have some cool shortcuts going from EX skill into BA4 or BA3 into EX2 or whatever else, at least not to my current knowledge. Instead, she has something that's slightly unique to her in that everything is special, cancelable, and since her parry is essentially free meter-wise, it means she forces what are called guard points. Now, this is a term that I'm familiar with from Monster Hunter, where certain actions or attack strings lead into your shield being held out defensively for a brief period of time. That small window turns into an opportunity to protect yourself with a perfect parry. In Zenless, Caesar doesn't have attack strings that end with her shield out, but instead has the ability to create her own guard points by special canceling anything she does. And when I say anything, I mean anything. Every action of hers at almost any frame can be special canceled into a parry, regardless of the energy stored. An example of this would be something like BA1 parry or BA2 into parry, BA3 pause parry. BA4 and 5 aren't bad by any means, but have way longer animations and should be used when the opening for long attacks exists, i.e. this will get me the stun, so I'm gonna do it. Caesar is all about control here. If you're gonna play Caesar, you need to learn your guard points and the enemy attack patterns. Following the guard points lesson, there's another move I forgot to bring up that is just as important. Since Zenless doesn't strictly dictate moves that are only special cancelable or dash canceled, it means her dash attack holds the same properties as her skill. By that, I mean you can do really dumb stuff like BA1 to parry, BA1 dash attack, trigger retaliation into EX2. Because EX2 only costs 20 meter, this combo should always give you enough energy to finish up with an EX2 as long as you trigger retaliation. The critical requirement here being you actually time the dash attack into a parry in order to force the retaliation to happen so you get the EX shield bash. Lastly, let me explain that move I just spoke on, retaliation. This move feels like a hidden mechanic even though it's not. In a simple explanation, you have to fail the perfect parry in order to block regularly. What you're looking for is this flashing cling effect. Then you'll mash down on your skill button to trigger an EX2. You need about 20 energy for this to happen, and you can't trigger them in succession. I'm not sure if there's an ICD on this, I wasn't able to test this, but you might be asking yourself, why would I ever want to miss the perfect parry? And that's a good question, Jessica. The reason you'd want to do this is because the daze multiplier on this move is like 400+%. Mobs get instantly stunned, and bosses can be stunned in literal seconds depending on your execution skills and how fast they attack. With all 3 major parries explained, we can end this chapter off by detailing how Caesar wants to be used on the field. She promotes some insane 2-man team comps because of how self-sufficient she is, but for the general player base, you'll want to treat her more like a trap card from Yu-Gi-Oh! When the enemy does something you don't like, activate your trap card. Don't depend on the actual parry mechanic in the game to bring Caesar's potential out, since it's technically the weakest shield in her kit, not in terms of daze or damage, but in regards to his usefulness. By manually bringing Caesar out with switch tech, you can always force a number of parries on any enemy whenever you want. Red attacks, yellow attacks, blue attacks, doesn't really matter. Caesar benefits the team the most in the hands of someone who is going to put in the work to abuse her. Learn to take advantage of her entire kit so that you can perform badass set plays like this. Here's where I leave the rest of the lab work to you. For now, let's quickly talk about her mind scape. Wait, I forgot one. This move. Dead End is her hold basic attack that felt pointless, but is actually incredibly beneficial. If you're familiar with Genshin Impact, this is basically Kazuha's elemental skill without jumping in the air. If you're not familiar with Kazuha, then Caesar's Dead End is a mob stunning crowd control attack that makes her completely invulnerable to any attack while pulling in every small enemy around her extremely close. It costs 1 assist point, but that doesn't matter when she parries everything for free. And she can switch tech this. Use this as often as you need it. Now we can talk about mindscapes. Caesar's M1 is a great quality of life cinema that grants the entire team Radiant Aegis at the start of combat and gives a 15% attribute damage resistance reduction. That's so much to say, bro. Holy fuck. It reduces the attribute resistance of whatever element you have by 15%. So much easier to say. And that happens to every enemy within range of you. This isn't really needed, but it creates one of those scenarios where the already busted character becomes even more busted. M2 is the next bang for your buck, giving her a new natural 10% energy regeneration rate and increases the original attack boost from the shield to a whopping 150%. The ERR basically gives a properly played Caesar EX parry at all times, while the attack boost from the shield turns that 1000 attack into 1500 for free. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not really free because you paid for M2, but that's beside the point. Do you want me to show you how to build her or not? Now that we're at the gear section for Caesar, this is where the more interesting aspects about her kit come into play. Caesar's build depends entirely on how you want to play her. You'll understand it more as I explain. Let's talk about weapons. Tusk of Fury is Caesar's signature weapon and of course her best in slot, and that's by a long shot. 18% impact as a main stat. It gives an additional 18% damage buff to the entire party, another 12% daze buff to the entire party, and improves her already busted shield strength by a ridiculous 30%. Compared to any other option in the game, it's difficult for me to tell you numerically how much this W engine scales versus them, but it's easy enough for me to tell you from a gameplay perspective how much of a difference this engine makes. It literally does everything she wants except energy regen, which we've kind of already discovered she doesn't actually need. At the moment, nothing else compares to the practicality of what Tusk of Fury provides. Her next best options come down to what role she fulfills on the team and who's on the team. Both of these next options serve different purposes and assist in a different playstyle. First, I'll start with Peacekeeper Specialized, and it's an amazing W engine that will go under most people's radar. The reason for this is because it's Seth's signature weapon and it provides no strong main stat option for Caesar. However, the important factor here is the effect given. Energy regen while shielded, which is all the time, and the anomaly buildup of her EX parries or defensive follow-up attacks increased by 55%. This weapon specifically should only be used if you're playing her with Jane and Seth together. Ideally, what happens is Seth actually gets her signature engine and she gets his. I know that sounds weird, but stick with me. Caesar also builds into a 4-piece Freedom Blues so that she assists Jane in building up physical anomaly as much as possible without being a major hindrance. The energy regen keeps our EX skill topped off and forces Caesar to become a parry monster, while using Seth to amplify the stun meter in the middle of her parries. I'll explain more in the teams chapter, but this setup is cracked. Big Cylinder is the second W engine I found myself loving, and this is purely for the type of players like myself who want to turn Caesar into a brick wall that punches back hard. Your build also changes from purely impact focused one to defense focused. At R5, Big Cylinder delivers an almost 1000% additional damage based on her defense, and it's guaranteed to crit. How you play this is by utilizing her parries when she has any amount of energy in order to guarantee that her EX2 or Skill 2 will always result in a crit. And because she already has crazy good daze multipliers behind these moves, stunning enemies won't be a problem when you're constantly delivering critical parries to the top of their head. With this particular build, I was able to play a lot more solo Caesar without wishing she had more damage. It's fun. Your last option is the craftable, free-to-play original Transmorpher. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I said that right. Transmorpher, not Transformer. While the HP stats don't seem that attractive, and they aren't, you can benefit from the combat impact this engine provides after being attacked. This doesn't mean they need to physically do damage to you either. It just means they need to perform the act of attacking you, which in Caesar's case is all the time. Diving straight into disc drives, I'd like to recommend 2 specific sets to pair along with my W engine recommendations, but other options may exist. Protopunk and Freedom Blues should be your go-to 4-piece set. Thanks to Caesar's defensive playstyle, she'll always be able to provide an extra 15% damage increase for the entire squad with Protopunk. Now when it comes to Freedom Blues, this should always be your 4-piece set with Jane at this current moment in time. Once Bernice officially releases, this might change, but as of right now, the physical anomaly buildup resistance being reduced on any target by 20% is such a wonderful bonus for Jane that she deletes bosses faster than they can take away Caesar's shield. Her most build-friendly 2-piece sets can range from Protopunk, Shockstar Disco, Soul Rock, or even Swing Jazz. but ideally you always want Shockstar because of the 6% impact boost. After that, we can finish this guide off with teams. What's cool about Caesar is that she can technically work on any team in the game, but that doesn't mean she excels in every team. Does that make sense? A lot of what she wants based on my own game experience is a fast driver who can maneuver around the screen better than most, or a driver that takes advantage of enemies being forced into stun for a short period of time. That said, Jayne, Seth, and Caesar is a team I originally thought was horrendous, even though I know it's currently one of the only ways to activate all 3 of their core passives without suffering as a team. Why I didn't like it was simply the fact that both Caesar and Seth basically share the same role of a stunner on the team, and it wasn't until my perspective was changed about Seth entirely that I started to look at this team differently. This unit is an actual beast for both Jayne and Caesar, to the point I'm almost willing to bet this is their best team for now. To briefly explain, Jayne's role is unchanging here, and she still wants to be the main one building physical anomaly, but thanks to the unique playstyle of the other two, she is treated closer to a burst DPS like Nekomata or even Zhu Yuan. The difference here is when played correctly, anything gets stunned in a handful of seconds, and that allows Jayne to capitalize on dishing out big dick damage anytime she hits the field. The key is in the rotation, but it's not static enough for me to actually call it a rotation, so I guess it's not fair. It's more like you have to be so fixated on the enemy's movements at all times that your fingers just move on their own. The key things to point out about Seth and Caesar swapping weapons is that the energy regen only applies once a shield is active, so Seth won't get the buff until after he lands his first EX attack, which prevents you from gaining enough energy at the start of the battle for the parry into EX skill into the assist rotation, leading us into giving him the, if I'm not mistaken, the energy regen disc on 6 instead of an impact disc. Because he becomes a pseudo stunner, he loses the ability to run impact on the main slot, and Caesar's weapon kind of balances this out for the stat requirements, so they both share the same thing. Caesar's going to be abusing EX skills more than anyone else on the team, so having her with the extra anomaly buildup from the weapon plus the main stat attack boost will help keep her anomaly damage a bit more consistent with Jayne, so it doesn't feel like she's slowing Jayne down. Execution is a big factor in this team as well, not only for the execution that comes with Caesar and the parry playstyle, but it also comes in execution with Seth as a whole. This is going to require you to use plinking. Plinking is something that I talk about pretty frequently, but it's basically when you slide your fingers across the buttons. Because I don't want this video to be too long, I'm going to explain this in their own team video that should be live either now or shortly after this video goes live. But TLDR about it, you need to plink Seth's EX skill or hold attack on top of using the quick assist almost at the same time. I promise it's not as complicated as it sounds, I just don't know how to explain it without showing you my fingers. The power in this team is all about control and decision. You cannot just mash parries because you will eventually run out. And if you don't learn how to recover from mistakes quickly, you're going to lose too much momentum to keep the team in its strongest form. I didn't expect it, but this has been my favorite team in the game so far, which kind of says a lot. Soldier 11, Caesar, and Lucy were next on the chopping block of Caesar teams that stood out the most to me, and for good reason. This one was a bit unorthodox due to how easily you can die, which sounds crazy with Caesar on the team, but the truth is that shield gets eaten up insanely fast depending on what the enemy is. The easiest way to explain this team's game plan is to put a lot more focus on abusing the invulnerability from Soldier 11's EX skill as a cover option to do anything else in the game. Thanks to his wide range of attack, this sets up Caesar perfectly to get in and out for any parry opportunities to keep the buffs up. It also works great since each of these parries will increase the daze meter again and again, which now leads into Soldier 11 plus the Boar Squad, bullying the enemy down until their HP depletes to 0. This also works in reverse for Lucy's EX skill as well, but she has quick assist, so you really don't want to swap off too fast. Instead, you want to let Soldier 11 get the quick assist while plinking the parry on an incoming attack. Repeat the process like I said earlier, which, you know, 2 birds, 1 stone kind of thing. Corrin, Caesar, and Rina are the final team that I want to talk about in today's video. And just to make this clear, Corrin can easily be replaced with Ellen. They are almost one and the same here, but I haven't done anything with Corrin since the beta, so I wanted to give her attention tonight. By now, we know what Caesar's goal is, but this time we're adding Rina and Corrin to the mix. This team creates a ridiculous level of total lockdown on the field because of everyone's skills. Rina's EX skill locks the enemy down from almost any range, giving a great amount of shock anomaly after a couple of these, and slides Corrin to anywhere on the screen with a single quick assist. This team is weird, but only due to my inexperience with Corrin. Conceptually, it works the same way Ellen would, whereas you do a couple things with the main DPS and you alternate between parries with your defensive unit and support attacks or skills in order to get the quick assist, bringing your main DPS back in. And Corrin, who loves stunned enemies, gets a nice chunky 35% damage boost when she's going against them. Since Caesar's on the team, this happens all the time. My mistake is assuming I know how to play Corrin well enough to demonstrate that for you all today. Guys, don't leave me hanging. Like someone help me out with Corrin here, because I really don't know what I'm doing. In my previous guide, I spoke about flaws pertaining to the character, and I'll do that here as well. Or at least I would if Caesar had any. I guess her damage output isn't incredibly high, but that isn't exactly a flaw. Caesar's only true flaw would be the lack of knowledge or execution from the player, and that's just the honest truth. Do I believe she's a must pull after spending weeks playing her? No. Do I believe every account that has Caesar is at least 50% better than those without? Hell yeah. Caesar is a respectable monster that truly has shown me this game's direction is quickly progressing into a phenomenal path. There's a lot of fun strategic playstyles being mixed with brute force or raw power now, and I love it. If you want her, pull her. Most of the players that will benefit from Caesar are those who are already investing into one of her better teams, and she'll offer a stronger new playstyle, but at the cost of player skill and retention. A lot of players seem to think that Caesar is going to make the game too easy and take away the skill, but it's actually the complete opposite. If you already have Zhu Yuan or you're saving for Miyabi, then don't pull her. You aren't gonna cripple your account by not having Caesar, but I'm telling you now, she absolutely fucks. Guys, thank you for watching today's video and making it to the end. If you enjoyed it or want to see more content from me, feel free to like the video, comment, and subscribe. I can't say my usual outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Smell you later.